I hear this idea that we are higher than animals because we have consciousness. And I feel that there are higher species than us in terms of adaptation to the surrounding, co-working to make something like bees or ants, or just the way to live in harmony with their surrounding, like whales. Practically all the species, they don't destroy their surrounding. They don't destroy themselves. I think we are the only species that can kill themselves like we do.
I'm not sure. I think it depends always how you want to define intelligence, but one way is sort of adaptability to change. But I find it interesting too that there are other species that kill their own species, like chimpanzees do that sometimes.
I've heard that, but I've heard that only about lions when they want to make love again to the female.
Then they kill the cubs, the kids. That can be but there's really both with chimpanzees. I think there's these documented cases that they go out and attack other groups and kill them. And another thing I thought of when you said other species live more in harmony with nature, and that's something I like this idea, this kind of romanticized idea of nature, but I think actually I don't think that's really what it is. There's this story about Margaret Mead. She was one of those famous anthropologists, and she defined, I think, how the changing point in humanity, when we started to become sort of human or human species, or like the humanistic or whatever element in it is, when you find bones of humans that had healed fractures, like their leg broke, but you could see it grew together again. So they, as a culture, or they developed some sort of culture to take care of each other, because any normal or any other animal, sort of, if they break their leg, that's pretty much the death sentence. And even if they live in groups or whatever, they die, kind of.
Ants, apparently, they do that. They take care of ants that have been injured.
Yeah, that's
you don't find that only in humans.
No, and I wouldn't say, because to me it's also strange. We often think, I think, of evolution and this old idea of this tree, and on top of it is the human as the crown of creation or something. And I just don't believe in any of that. To me, evolution as a concept makes sense to say, there's the fittest survives, but it's more like something we can observe. But there's not a directed way of how nature evolves. It just happens. Like, this thing survives because of that. Lucky, okay. Next time, better chance, maybe it survives. But there's no direction. There's no God or no nature God necessarily behind it that says, we develop in this way or anything. It's really just things happen and we...
But about consciousness, I feel animals are part of this huge consciousness. They don't have this individual feeling. They're really part of a higher purpose and a higher self.
Yeah.
And I think we could have this. To me, the highest consciousness would be to feel that we are part of a bigger group, we are just one element.
I think that's something super interesting, because I think you have that actually in humans too. It's just in our Western culture, I think it's not very common. This reminds me often of this, I think I've told you that story before. The studies they did where they gave people the option to say, here's a certain amount of time or money or some sort of thing you can use to make yourself happier, and then you could by culture see that in the more Western cultures, most people end up saying, yeah, I'll do, I go maybe a yoga class, I do something for myself, or I spend it on shopping or whatever, like things more individually focused. In a lot of more Eastern oriented cultures, the thought was much more, what can I do with the time to give back to the community, to to help my tribe, my community, my village, my something. And I think there's there's a bunch of cultures where I think that is much more ingrained in the system, that you really that some of the behaviors that are very normal in our society, they would be like shocked and think, well, why would you not take care of someone else, and why would you only focus on yourself? So I don't think that's something that has to be that's something that we lost as humans altogether.
I think also what we lack in Western countries with this idea of, oh, we are higher than animals, is that we forget that we are, to me, we totally are primates.
Yeah.
We totally are mammals.
Mammals, yeah.
We are mammals at first.
Yeah.
And when we forget that, I think we act as if we are not part of nature. We forget our roots, we forget our first purpose, and we forget to listen to our instincts, our animal instincts.
Yeah.
And I really think it's very important.
Yeah.
I've heard a mom, a future mom, she was pregnant, and we were talking about, oh, will you breastfeed or not? And she answered, oh, no way, I'm not a cow.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And to me, this is nonsense.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm too extreme about this, but I really feel, for example, the milk belongs to the baby.
Yeah.
It's not your choice or not, it belongs to him, at least the first weeks after, if it hurts or if you really have problems with it. But
yeah, and and I think it's also, that's how it evolved also, right? I think there's a lot of studies that show how individual the mother's milk to the needs of the babies is. There's really a symbiosis that slowly parts, right? It's not that birth, beam the babies out and that's it, now ciao, have your formula and you're done. That whole separation is just a thought always that you say man versus nature, or the idea that we're in opposition to animals. There's humans and there's animals and nature, and this kind of thinking it's really archaic, and I think in a way it's also changing the thinking, at least around it, in the world a bit more, at least, but not there's no, I don't think things will change. The exploitation of the world continues because of how the system functions, right? This is what I really loved in this quote in The Social Dilemma, where the guy starts saying, as long as we live in a world where a dead tree is worth more than a tree that's alive, there's something tilted in the system that you won't be able to get out of it, because that's the primary motivation for like, there's money at the source of it, which is power in a way, bound in this thing, so you can spend it later on this or that, and as long as these very basic mechanisms function like that, even if there's a shift in thinking, it's going to be very hard, because if you have little money, you end up buying shit food somewhere because you can't afford something else, or you end up taking the thing into account that it's bad for the environment because you can't afford to do it in another way, I think. You
can see that in one of the main moments of life, which are the birth and the death. We are more and more disconnected from our nature. When you give birth in a white room with machines everywhere, and they will say, oh, it's better if you give birth this day because the gynecologist is available this day, and so we're gonna provoke it. And and you have the epidural, and you don't even feel what you're doing. When I gave birth, I really felt like an animal. I was on the floor screaming. And after, when I saw my baby, I really had instincts of a wolf, or I wanted to lick her face. I wanted to, I really had this strong instinct thing of rejecting any potential danger around, and feeling, okay, she's part of me, and I have to do everything to protect her.